Council meeting of September 8th, 2020 to order and have our city recorder do a roll call. Claudia?
Councilor Drapkin?
Here.
Councilor Garvin?
Here.
Councilor Geary?
Here.
Councilor Stassen?
Here.
Councilor Peralta?
Here.
Council President Minke?
Here.
And Mayor Hill?
Here. Thank you, Claudia. We have everyone in attendance from the council this evening. We're going to first start out this evening with comments from citizens, and any interested audience member may participate by providing comments that this evening, and so that you can speak on topics other than a matter in litigation, a quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter scheduled for public hearing at some future date. We will announce comments. The announced comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person for a total of 30 minutes before the council this evening. If you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand feature on Zoom and request to speak. Once it's your turn, we'd ask you to give your name, unmute your mic, give your name, and talk directly to our city recorder, and then she will announce you. So this evening, do we have any comments from citizens?
Yes, we'll start with Eloise Pierce on Zoom. We'll go ahead and unmute your mic.
Go ahead. Welcome.
Hi.
Go ahead.
My name is Eloise Pierce.
You got it.
And I had something called Trees for Bees. It's where we plant trees all over the town for people to have snacks and for the bees, because they're coming to be extinct and they need food. And also because trees help the oxygen and air.
Got it. Doing great. Keep going.
And I had another thing, a community garden with lots of food and stuff. And
You're doing great. Keep it up.
So
It's okay. You're doing awesome. Speak from your heart.
and where we could have food for people, and we could cook there with our fresh produce, and we could water the plants by hand from some source, and yeah.
You're doing great. Tell me your name.
My name is Eloise.
How old are you?
And I'm 8 years old.
Thank you. And Claudia, do we have the information to get back with Louise?
We do.
And I would just have our planning department, especially, and maybe Jamie, to get back, because we are very involved in tree planting and we can coordinate some of those efforts. So thank you very much for your comments this evening. We've heard that and we'll reach out to you.
Okay. What do you say?
Thank you.
Good job. Claudia, do we have any others to speak to us this evening?
Next we have Tynan Pierce.
Okay.
Hey everyone, I'm Eloise's dad. So this is just I think we can all see, first of all, thank you all for your time. Thanks everyone for being here. Obviously we can all see what's happening right now outside our windows. These are like wild and scary times. I've never lived in an area with wildfires like this, and maybe some of you have, but hopefully this doesn't become our new normal. And I just want to make sure that it's always staying at the front of our minds and the front of our conversations, that as active and as engaged the community has been to come together to deal with the COVID-19 crisis, hopefully we can all take that same sort of urgency towards the climate crisis. There's a lot of easy ways to always think of a crisis as someone else's problem, or that's happening somewhere else in the world, or that's happening somewhere else in the country. And all of a sudden we're looking outside and neighbors of ours are getting evacuated in Salem, as I'm sure lots of you might have friends and family that are having to be evacuated or potentially even losing homes. And it's a really sad and scary time for a lot of people. And so as much work as the city has already done towards building a solid and resilient infrastructure, I would hope that we can continue to make sure that's at the forefront of all of our minds and all of our conversations, because this is real. I mean, we're looking outside and we can't see the sun. You know, we can't breathe clean air. And I want to thank everyone for the time and energy that they put in so far to make sure that McMinnville is a leading city in the country, to make sure we're taking on the real challenge that is global climate change. But hopefully we can continue to make sure that this is always at the forefront of our conversations and something that we're always bringing up, and not just waiting for it to be 50-mile-an-hour winds, trees going down and people's houses being burnt up. This has a very real chance to become the new normal, even in places that we felt like we're really safe because of our, consistent rainforest that we have on the coast. But now all of a sudden our coast is on fire, and it's becoming really, really real for all of us that maybe we didn't think this would be so soon. Maybe we thought we had another 5 years, another 10 years. So hopefully we can all just take that in our hearts, and we can feel for all the people all over the world, and especially all over like our immediate communities that are suffering and in pain right now and scared. And we can do our best to make sure that we're going to strive to make sure that McMinnville can do everything it possibly can do within its resources to be an inspiration to other places and continue to take care and protect the people of our own city. So that's my short comments on that.
Thank you so very much, and so well articulated that this evening, because we're right in the middle of it as we look out the window. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all for your time, and hope you all stay safe. Hope all your families and everyone that you love and care about are safe and in solid places right now. So best of luck to everybody.
Thank you. Claudia, any more?
That was all, Mayor.
Thank you for those comments, and those are a part of our record. This takes us to our third item of business this evening, which is advice and information. And so we will have reports from our counselors on committee and board assignments. I'm just going to go across the top. And so, Zach, I see you first in my screen, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Landscape Review Committee, we had some proposal that came in front of us for an urgent care center near the pet clinic out by the bowling alley. It was an interesting discussion. They were potentially splitting things off in the future, but so they're seeking some information and bringing that back. Otherwise, that was the main topic or agenda item. The Landscape Review Committee has completed a review of the landscape specific code and is moving on to the treescape specific code. So they're conducting a meeting by meeting review of the codes and ordinances that they're charged to uphold, and just sort of bringing any old issues to light and talking about new things they want to revise and have learned through the process to discuss. So that was fun and interesting to be a part of. Mac Hack is continuing to chug along at full steam. We're bringing on, and at the last meeting had a fantastic discussion with our first time with bringing some familiar faces to this council back, the consultant team that helped us publish that study that let us embark on that. So the architects adorned in black came and talked to us and listened to us, and we had little Zoom breakout sessions, and we talked a lot about what started actually kind of taking our DEI lens that we created and running what we want this building and facility and the pool and the aquatic center and the performing arts center and what do we want, right sizing those things if at all to be included, and running them through the DEI lens that we created to make sure that what the space is going to be safe and welcoming for all. And then we were able to give that feedback to the consultant team and start talking about massing and what's appropriate for McMinnville and how is the child drop-off care center going to be the safest place to be. You don't put it right by the front door. Do you put it far away? Does it feel like a welcoming and easy to navigate space? And have that discussion with the consultant team was really cool. Those were the main things that happened in between our meetings that I'm liaising on. So that's my update.
Thank you, Zach. Let's go ahead to Kelly.
All of my meetings are ahead of me. Next Wednesday, the visit McMinnville, and since I've missed landscape review a couple of times, I'm looking forward to it. And I might even attend a MacPac meeting one of these days soon. So thanks.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's go to Wendy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did have a MURAC meeting on last Wednesday, and the primary things we went over, we had more applications for the COVID Recovery Facade Improvement Grant, or Facade Improvement Program, which was a grant that we were offering a higher percentage to encourage people to take this time to really freshen up facades in the downtown core. We have had a lot of interest, and the planning department has done an amazing job of evaluating the different applications for us to understand the impact and financial investment and matching and how well the different applications meet the criteria. So we have some great applications that we're going to be approving there through that program. We also had Ukiah come for the first time, which was awesome. She did have some connectivity issues, so she wasn't able to contribute as much as I'm sure she wanted to, but that was great to have her there. And then we also talked about Scott and Walt had put some energy into, maybe Kelly too, I'm not sure, but had put some energy into, we had some great candidates to fill some vacancies that we had on the committee. And it sounds like we had agreement from the rest of the Urban Renewal Advisory Committee to go ahead with their proposal. And it looks like we're going to have 3 new members and 1 new ex officio that will be joining MURAC soon. So, and Scott can give some background on who those applicants were. But it was a great meeting, and our next one is the first Wednesday of next month.
Thank you, Wendy. Let's go to Remy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize in advance. I let my dog out of his crate, so if he hollers during this section, it's just, he's quite jealous of everybody in this meeting. So a quick update on the McMinnville Affordable Housing Task Force. As you already know, we had a conversation regarding parking and also addressing equity and inclusion in terms of how that affects McMinnville and its codes and policies going forward. The council gave direction at the last meeting to look at some rental criteria. And so we also had representation there from code enforcement to look at putting together or bringing in additional members for a committee as we look at following that council direction and creating that committee and making sure that we are conscientious of not creating housing barriers while we're trying to elevate housing quality and make sure that we have people, that we're providing a format in which people can, are always living in housing that is, I don't know what the right word that I'm searching for, but that people are not finding themselves in housing situations in which they have no recourse based on income level. Aside from that, the moteling program that's being hosted by YCAP has continued to be quite robust with 55 households, I believe 89 people served, and just a little bit of information about those who are being served. The population is about 50-50 male and female. There continues to be a high level of need based on those fleeing domestic violence, and 100% of those who have been served have chronic health problems. The funding for that program is also set to expire currently in September. And while YCAP does have additional applications out for funding to keep the program going, it's been a very successful program with an abnormally high percentage of people going into permanent or permanent supported or transitional housing. Currently, there's only enough funding to keep that program going through the end of the month. Also, the rental assistance program through YCAP is still available. However, a large number of those funds have also been spent at this time. That program is available through those who may experience houselessness based on the effects of COVID-19. And to learn more about either of those programs or to apply, please go to the YCAP website. Mr. Mayor, you were muted when you moved on.
Excuse me. Thank you, Remy. Sal, we'll move on to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Council of Governments hasn't met since our last meeting. It's actually been 5 or 6 weeks since our last COG meeting, but we have an executive board meeting tomorrow and our full board meeting next week. The only minor report from that is that we've closed the application period for our executive director. We have a pretty strong pool of applicants, so we'll be going through those in the next few weeks and hopefully coming up with a new executive director to return some of the services of the COG to the local communities.
Thank you, Sal. And then we'll end with Adam. Adam?
Nothing to report from YCOM. We're supposed to meet here in a couple days if it doesn't get canceled for lack of agenda items. Airport, we had a pretty robust meeting after not meeting since March. The first resolution in our packet, you'll see the apron grant that we got awarded with no city match, which was a welcome surprise. And from an airport manager's perspective, they still are dealing with security issues out there. McPD's been great in helping address those, but that'll be on our horizon moving forward, is just creating some additional barriers and kind of updating our fencing from the outdated 80s into modernization with a different gate access program. And then our G hangar, which is a city-owned hangar, got some wear and tear on it, but likely still has some life left in it. So we're going to explore the cost of providing power to that hangar, because it currently has higher occupancy rates than any other hangars due to its lack of power. So kind of look through that through an ROI matrix, and if it makes sense with the lifespan it has left and the cost that it could be. Not knowing those costs, we just want to get everything on the table, and if we can get that occupancy up, we can get the fuel flowage rates up, and that would get the airport some more income. So everything, all in all, is going pretty good out there. We're just embarking on our update to commercial standards, which will also create better understanding about whose job is what and what rules are what and how they're enforced, instead of kind of the Wild West that it's been out there for the last couple decades. So it's going to modernize the airport, and I think create a more equitable and even playing field for transient aircraft and aircraft that are based out there full time.
Thank you, Adam. Let me just go over a couple of items I've been involved in. The first is the Newburgh-Dundee bypass. David Hugelberg, myself, and our consultants are going to be able to meet with the chair of the OTC, the Oregon Transportation Committee, and then the director of ODOT, and talk a little bit about proceeding forward with the Newburgh-Dundee bypass, specifically looking at the tie from Dundee to Dayton, phase 3, and that's the phase that's really going to have some impact for McMinnville. We know that there is going to be some infrastructure money coming from the federal government, and ODOT is looking favorable to working with us. What that means, we'll know after the meeting, but I'll update you shortly after that. As Wendy indicated at MURAC, we had an opportunity to interview 4 candidates for 2 positions on our MURAC committee, and we didn't bring them to you tonight. So at our next council meeting, we will have the name of 2 individuals that will fill vacancies on MURAC, and then we're going to create a temporary ex officio position for someone that is associated with the granary area and representing their interest. And so more to come to you from that perspective. I just wanted to share with those that I know Kelly and Remy were on our Yamhill leadership call today, but our director, Lindsay Manfred from the county, Human and Family Services, gave us an update a little bit on COVID for the county, and she's feeling much better over the last few weeks about our level of new incidences. We have been at over 20 new cases per day, and we're under that level right now. They've been able to hire more support for tracing and follow-up, which gives them a better opportunity to get to people sooner than later. The big concern right now is Labor Day, what the impacts of Labor Day are going to be. We'll see that in 2 to 3 weeks. Right now, we have 652 COVID cases or positive cases in Yamhill County. The major growth area is McMinnville, but we are the largest city and we've got a lot going on there. She said, just make sure that we keep social circles small. We wear our masks, clean our hands and distance. And then she talked just a little bit about the fire and smoke particles that are going around us this week, and that our typical masks are not going to help us take those particulates out of the air, that we would truly need to have the more robust particulate mask that most of us aren't wearing. And so we ought to be very cautious and not go out for the next couple of days if possible. Lastly, that I have today would be, I had an opportunity to meet with MEDP, and all I can tell you is I'm very impressed with the level of businesses looking at purchasing property or moving to McMinnville. A lot of things in play there, more to come as we have an opportunity to focus on that. But just some really good things during these COVID times, and putting that in with our care funds, and that $200,000 is going to be able to be given out to local businesses. We're making some headway from that perspective. Okay, I'm going to see if department heads have reports. Amanda, anything from your perspective?
No, thank you, Your Honor, Mayor.
Thank you. Debbie from the fire? You're muted, Debbie.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. I'd like to start out tonight by saying that we're very fortunate that we have no active fires within our jurisdiction. We did have a fire earlier on Peavine today that we were able to hold to a really small fire and get that out to keep putting some ease of the residents there. We have been fortunate enough to have a lot of volunteer help today and last night, and we have 6 extra staff staffed up tonight to deal with the fires if they were to happen. We have sent our main engine down to Sheridan to help them with the large fire they have going. We're hearing that they may be released within the next hour or two to come back to our jurisdiction. We sent a tender, which is a water supply rig, to Dayton to help back them up. And we have sent a brush rig out to Hag Lake to help with the evacuations. They are slated to be there for a 10 to 12 hour stint, and then they will be reporting back to the station. So as far as that, we're holding pretty good. We have staff enough here to respond to anything that we might have and to help out our neighbors. So with that, additionally from that, we do have a hiring process on Thursday. We will be hiring 2 part-time paramedic firefighters. And that's about it that for right now. Obviously, we're really busy and kind of keeping track of what's happening.
Debbie, take it back how much we appreciate the men and women of the fire department during these times. And I know they put their lives on the line every time they go out. So tell them thank you.
We will do. And I'd like to add a thank you to some of the citizens and businesses that supplied us with lunch and dinner this evening. So thank you if you're out there.
Great. Thank you, Debbie. Let's
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question of Debbie at this moment?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Debbie, I know a lot of people were very alarmed by how inundated McMinnville was with smoke this afternoon. And it caused a tremendous amount of alarm for people and feeling as though they didn't know what to do or where to go for information. And I'm wondering if you can just address that kind of broadly for our citizens about where and how to stay informed, and also what citizens of McMinnville should be thinking about at this moment with so many fires happening in our greater region.
I'm sure. So we will be posting on our Facebook as well as on the city website any kind of updates, especially if we get something within our area. We will make sure that we're posting periodically. Also watch the news channels if you have access to TV, because they are on top of it if you've been watching any of that. We did field several hundred calls, I think, this afternoon on people being nervous about evacuations because they're hearing evacuations, and then the smoke did come in very dark, very clearly into our area. So just kind of, we're going to put out the information as much as possible. Yamhill County Emergency Management Facebook and their website will also be posting throughout this event as it happens. That's probably the best way. We aren't tweeting out anything, but we will put out messages as we can.
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you, Remy, for that question. Let's go over.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, can I add one more thing to those listening? We have responded to quite a few this evening, which is kind of surprising to illegal burn activity, either starting small fire pits in their backyard or charcoal burners. We are in a complete burn ban and red flag warning, obviously due to the conditions. So we're asking citizens to please refrain from any kind of open flames in the outdoors.
Thank you for that message. Let's go to Matt, Chief Scales.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. First of all, Debbie, thanks for all your teams are doing over there. I know you guys are stretched and it's chaotic, but you guys are true heroes right now and all the time, but I want to say that right now. A couple updates from Mac PD. School resource officers start next week. Probably the news that I'd like to share with you most of all, I think we all remember that the city had gone through an employment arbitration recently, and today we were notified that the city prevailed, and so they upheld the discipline that was handed out. So with that being said, we'll enter into a likely hiring process and then a subsequent promotion process. But wanted to give you that news and pass it along and keep you up to date. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Heather, we'll go to you next.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to update everyone on our emergency business assistance grant. We are in the window of accepting applications for that grant. We will be accepting them for the next 2 weeks. We have received 16 thus far and expect to get many more from that. If anybody has questions, they can call the planning department and talk to Sean Kelso or Sarah Sullivan at
434-7311. Or you can go to the website that's been set up for this, which is macbusinessassistance.com, macbusinessassistance.com. That has all the applications on it in both Spanish and English, and then the different criteria for the grant. We want to make sure as many businesses get the information as possible and apply for it so that we are able to get those in need funds.
Thank you, Heather. Kylie, let's go to you.
Hello. Two updates for the council this evening. One is that on October 13th, you will all receive or hear a presentation by Gallagher Benefit Services. That's the consultant the city has retained for the classification compensation project, which despite COVID has been slow going, but is nearing an end. So during that presentation, we'll be sharing some recommendations from the consultant with the council. At that point, we will not be asking for action by the council. We'd like to take the information back and funnel it through the information that we'll get about our mid-year budget process. So it'll be more of an informational presentation, and then we'll be returning to the council with another presentation and a recommendation on an implementation strategy. But given the uncertainty of budgets, I hate saying these uncertain times, we just want to make sure we're approaching this cautiously and not entering into any budget changes that could negatively impact the city. Second update for you is on the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at the city of McMinnville. I want to thank all the councilors for providing the feedback that was shared with Jeff and I on the draft DEI plan. I really appreciate the time that folks took to read and review that and give some thoughtful feedback to us. We're further refining that document, and as our DEI advisory committee is formed, they're going to take on a greater leadership role with that document to refine the plan, to help us attach timelines and individuals or groups that might be responsible for action items in that plan. It's our intent also to present the council with some information on the DEI advisory committee. Hopefully by the next council meeting, we're reviewing our code to see if we need to have formal action to start that committee, or if it's something that can simply be brought to the council for kind of an informal approval process. So we're reviewing that and hope to have some updates for you at the next meeting. If not the next meeting, the one right after that. So very soon we'll be getting that process posted and handled. And I'm really excited about that. It's been a long time coming. Also want to let you all know that we've narrowed down some potential trainers on equity and inclusion for the city. More consultants and another group called Construct the Present are both providing proposals to the city on a variety of topics. The main one is training that will be geared toward all city employees as a mandatory training. Additionally, some specific training geared toward our law enforcement teams, knowing that they're experiencing something, quite different right now, and that training might need to come through a different lens. Or maybe a different delivery mechanism. And then also a training for the mayor and council as policymakers to understand terms related to equity and inclusion, but also the role of policymakers in this work. So once we review those potential trainers, we'll make a decision on who the city'd like to go with. And we're prepared to hold those as soon as October. And hope to have all of that training wrapped up by mid-November before the holiday season starts. All of these trainings are going to be conducted electronically over Zoom, WebEx, or another platform, just so you're aware of that. And then I wanted to clarify one additional thing. It was a piece of feedback that we heard from multiple counselors, so I wanted to take a little bit of time to explain it just a bit. I'm concerned there was a miscommunication regarding the intent of a community listening session. Listening sessions, that's a public engagement tool that we described in that draft plan. And I want to share that the city intends to conduct a really robust engagement strategy as we assess how we handle our DEI initiatives, how we're doing so far, and where we have room to improve. we want to effectively gather feedback from our communities of color in the city of McMinnville, from people in the LGBTQ+ community, as well as people experiencing disabilities. A community listening session, it's not your standard public meeting. It's typically a really carefully crafted engagement tool that's run with a facilitator. And generally it's at a neutral or a safe location that's not going to be our Civic Hall if we do something in person. Not that we don't love being at Civic Hall, and man, I think we all kind of miss it right now. It might not always be the best place to engage with members of our community who haven't typically engaged with our government. So generally these kinds of listening sessions will happen at a local business, a church, maybe a school or a restaurant or cafe, and we'll most likely hold a handful of these electronically using Zoom or another platform like this. In addition to those listening sessions, we intend to explore different engagement strategies like a dedicated voicemail line or a text message line or an email address. We're also looking at using an online survey, the good old-fashioned comment cards, even some social media polling, and maybe direct email or text services. So as we assess these equity and inclusion efforts, we're going to make every effort to use best public engagement practices while working with our community partners to make sure that we have a really robust engagement process. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page about that and let you all know that our intent is to offer up engagement strategies that work for the people who we're hoping to hear from and not just work for the city and all of us in the more dominant culture. Thanks.
Thank you, Kylie. And I have a question to follow up for the council. You each have received that draft DEI plan, and many of us have put some notes down and forwarded that back. The question that I would have, do we want to have another work session to have a discussion around that? Or do you feel that we are to a point where we could come forward with a resolution adopting the plan? And so I'll just get a direction from each of the councilors so that Kylie would know what direction to go. So Zach, what would be your consideration?
I gotta stop logging into these meetings so early because I'm in the pole position every time, I guess. I had a handful. I didn't see anyone else's. I know what I sent, and what I had commented on, provided feedback while Kylie addressed some of that there. Wasn't a document I was ready to stamp and say go on. So if that means work session to get to consensus on what is yes, then yes. So I don't know if that answers your question, but what was sent out wasn't to me ready for my approval.
Okay. So work session for you.
Yeah, but I'm hot to trot on that if that makes sense. So
absolutely.
Yes.
Let's go to Kelly. Your thoughts?
I thought it was well thought out. I must admit, what I'd like to see is the committee formed, the committee that would have hopefully a number of people of different races in it and other persuasions, because I really think I'd like to hear from them more than anyone else and let them form the buttress of it and then maybe come to us and we could talk about a further work session. But I think I would like to see the committee formed first. So I would vote for approval of going with it the way it is.
Okay. Wendy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do think it's clear that a lot of work was put into it. I do appreciate how thorough it was, and I know that this is a process. I like the listening sessions. I think a committee is a good idea to figure out implementation. I don't necessarily know if we need a work session before we approve it. I didn't see any red flags that would make me concerned about that. But I like the idea of having a committee that would be contributing to that going forward. So I think overall really well done, and I was pleased with the work.
Okay. And so if I got from that would be moving it to adoption phase and having the committee do work after that.
Yes.
Remy?
I feel similarly that we're ready to move forward at this point.
Thank you. Sal?
Yeah, I actually agree with Wendy and Kelly and Remy. I think that I interpreted the first draft that we saw from Kylie as just that, a draft, and I don't think that we need to have a separate work session. I assume that that's going to continue to be improved as it comes towards us. And I also agree with Kelly's comment, especially that I would like to see feedback from the community first. So,
absolutely. And then Adam?
Yeah, I'd definitely like to get the listening sessions in, and you know, even a committee before anything completely finalized. But I think as far as a draft, as long as we're acknowledging it's a draft, I think it's a great framework to at least get some input from the community on.
Thank you, Adam. And I would agree with that, been a long-term proponent of having that committee put together, because it is representing the varied groups within our community, and that can't happen unless we have input from them. And so we can do the best we can do, taking best practices from all around us, but we are uniquely McMinnville. And so Kylie, do you have the direction you need to go?
I think so. We'll double check back on any formalities, resolution, or ordinance that might need to be passed about forming that committee, and then hopefully have an update for you about that at our next council meeting. So thank you again for your feedback. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's go to Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. I just have a short item. I want to let folks know that in the process of looking for 2 new members of the budget committee for next cycle, we only got a couple of applications. So we built into the timeline the possibility of extending the deadline. So we're going to do that. And the deadline will be extended to 5 p.m. on Friday, September 25th. And Claudia is going to be posting another announcement in the paper. And it's already actually on the website. So that's all I wanted to note.
I did have a person contact me, and I didn't think to tell him to contact you. I told him to contact Claudia just so they could fill out the form. But I can talk to you afterward about who it is.
Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer. Let's go over to Jenny. Jenny, you're still muted. Let's move over to Mike. Mike, and then Jenny, I saw you come on. You've come on. Come after Mike, then, if you would. Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll have resolutions for your consideration in a bit. Otherwise, nothing further this evening.
Thank you, Mike. Jenny.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the patience with that. I'll just give a quick update in terms of COVID services, library services during COVID. We have increased our library hours Tuesday and Thursday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday, 10 to 5 p.m. And then we are still offering home delivery Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we've actually expanded that home delivery to outside of the city limits within 4 miles of within 4 miles of the city limits of McMinnville, Lafayette, Yamhill, and Carlton. So we're having others that are getting in on those services. And we are all now looking at what we might do to serve students in the schools and parents in this regard as well. And I'll report more when I have more information about those services.
Thank you, Jenny. Let's go to Claudia. Anything from our city recorder?
Nothing, Mayor.
And then Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. A couple of things to build on the report from Deputy Chief McDermott earlier. Just to clarify that at this point, we expect McMinnville will remain under a red flag warning until 8 p.m. tomorrow night. We're expecting low humidity and winds to continue tomorrow. Right now, the forecasts are 15 to 30 mile an hour winds with gusts up to 45. We also expect the temperature to increase over the next couple of days. So there still will be a kind of a weather eye towards increasing fire danger over the next couple of days. The windstorm last night did bring down a few trees and some limbs around town. You saw an email earlier about the tree that came down at the water reclamation facility. In addition to that, we had a couple of trees down in Dancer Park and maybe a half dozen or so large limbs in other areas around town. A couple of them did compromise some electrical facilities, and we've worked with McMinnville Water and Light to clear those. I've got a more detailed email that David Renshaw sent to me this afternoon that I will forward to you later. I have nothing else to report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. That takes us to our consent agenda this evening. We have one item on that. Would any counselor request to have that item removed from our consent agenda? Hearing none, I will take a motion.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Adam and seconded by Zach. All in favor in accepting the consent agenda as moved, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please signify by saying nay. That consent agenda passes unanimously 6-0. This evening we have three resolutions that we have on our agenda. The first is a resolution number 2020-55, a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a forthcoming grant offer from the Federal Aviation Administration relative to the construction of the McMinnville Municipal Airport apron and tax lane rehabilitation project contingent upon the city attorney's review. So we'll call on our Community Development Director, Mike Bissett, to present. Mike?
Thank you, mayors and members of the council. I'll refer you to the brief staff report that's in your packet, as well as a copy of the resolution and the grant application materials that we submitted to the Federal Aviation Administration. Many of you will recall that we've been working on the design and environmental work and bidding for the project to reconstruct about 9,400 square yards of apron at the airport and construct new tie downs for transient aircraft. We had applied for the grant based on a construction gap based on the bid opening results, and were initially notified by the FAA that it was likely that we wouldn't be funded until a future grant cycle. A short time ago, I received verbal notification from our FAA rep that they're coming to the end of their fiscal year. And as part of that, additional discretionary funds were available to fund our construction project. Our FAA rep noted that the date of our bid award or bid results were the earliest in their queue, and therefore we were first in line for the additional discretionary money when it became available. So he's currently working on the grant notification paperwork and expects to have that to us this month. And he noted to me that we'll have a very short turnaround on that grant paperwork, likely a day or two, that we need to get that signed and return to them so that we procure that funding. We've done this in the past. We've brought to you, FAA sort of operates in this fashion at times, and under a prior capital project, we brought to you a very similar resolution that gives the city manager authority to execute the grant and turn it around in their timeline. Construction for this project is scheduled for next construction season, September, October of 2021, after the planned 2021 Oregon International Air Show. So unless there are any questions, I'd recommend that the council adopt the resolution giving the city manager the authority to sign the grant paperwork once it's received.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike or council discussion? Pretty straightforward. So I will ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2020-55.
So moved.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
I have Sal and Kelly. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed signify by saying nay. Resolution 2020-55 passes unanimously 6-0. That takes us to a second resolution this evening, which is Resolution 2020-56, a resolution approving an intergovernmental agreement between the City of McMinnville and McMinnville Water and Light related to the 3-mile lane bridge replacement project, utility construction services. So, Mike, if you could update us on this resolution.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. Again, I'll refer you to the staff report that's in your packet, as well as a copy of the draft resolution and the intergovernmental agreement with McMinnville Water and Light. You will recall that ODOT is working on a project to replace the 3-mile lane bridge. As part of that project, both the city and McMinnville Water and Light asked for our utilities to be placed on that structure. Specifically, the city will have a sewer force main and McMinnville Water and Light will have a water line, as well as power and communication conduits installed on the bridge. ODOT has agreed to include that as part of their construction contract, and the city will pay. The city and Water and Light will pay for their portions of the work. We've executed an intergovernmental agreement with McMinnville Water and Light for design services. OBEC was the bridge engineer on the project for ODOT. We retained them to do the utility design. Subsequent to that contract, they were purchased by Dow LLC, and we transferred the personal service contract to Dow. Dow's continued with the bridge design as well as the utility design. The project's moving to bidding, and after bidding, we'll commence construction. The resolution and intergovernmental agreement you have before you is for services that they will provide during construction for all of the city and Water and Light utilities that will be on the structure. So, unless there are any questions, I'd recommend you adopt the resolution and enter into the intergovernmental agreement with McMinnville Water and Light.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions of Mike, or move to a discussion on Resolution 2020-56? Hearing none, then I will ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2020-56.
So moved. Ooh, Zach by a hair.
Second.
And okay, we've got Zach and we've got Wendy with the motion and a second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Resolution 2020-56 passes unanimously 6-0. That takes us to our last resolution this evening, which is Resolution 2020-57. And this is a resolution approving a task order number 2 to the personal service contract for utility construction services related to the 3-mile lane bridge replacement project. Mike, we'll turn that over to you for discussion.
Once again, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. There is a brief staff report in your packet, as well as the resolution and the task order scope of work. This is the companion resolution to the resolution you just adopted. This formally executes a task order with Dow LLC in the amount of $157,598 for the utility construction services. The city's share of these services is approximately $72,463. McMinnville Water and Light has the balance. Funds for this work will be included, for the city's portion, will be included in the wastewater capital budget. So Unless there are any questions, I'd recommend you adopt the resolution as presented.
Thank you, Mike. Any questions for Mike or council discussion? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion to approve resolution 2020-57.
So moved.
Second.
It was moved by Sal, seconded by Zach. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, signify by saying nay. Resolution number 2020-57 passes unanimously 6-0 this evening. This takes us to the conclusion of our meeting this evening. Anything that needs to come before we close tonight? Thank you, councilors. Thank those that were on the call with us. And so I will adjourn the meeting. Thank you.